It's a Wednesday. Tom Coates is in the house, and we're talking politics as Bruce Braley gets ready to announce running against who for Harkin's seat. That's Today with Army Brad, live on The View from a Pew.
Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. It's a Wednesday, which means Tom Coates is in the house, and we're talking politics here on 99.3 KTIA. Army Brad in also, as well as Father Tattoo, and even though you probably won't hear her, the prettiest girl in the room today is Mrs. Father Tattoo, so she'd be Mother Tattoo. Does she have tattoos?
Maybe.
That's private.
Well, you really should know since you're married and have two children together.
I do know. I'm just not going to talk about it.
Okay, then we'll just call her Mother Tattoo. And today we're going to talk a little politics, and the big news out right now is that Bruce Braley is getting ready to announce, apparently, that he is running for Senator Tom Harkin's seat, as Harkin announced last weekend that he is gone. He will not run for re-election.
I was hoping Tom Coates was going to announce.
Well, it's early. Give me time.
Is it early? Because I'm ready to build your campaign.
Give me some time here, Father.
We've got new camera stuff. I mean, you'd be amazed what we can do for production-wise. I'm just saying.
You'd have to be my campaign manager, though. You did such a good job.
Tom, no, go. Shh.
We could do this, Tom.
You did such a good job on those political ads, Mac.
Yeah, he could be your production director.
There you go, production. Yeah, we'll make. Mac should be your campaign manager.
Oh no,
he's the guy that knows everybody.
That would sink him. I'm Karl Rove. I'm just the brains behind the pack.
I think the best the three of us could do is maybe get a couple of votes. I think that's probably about it. But
probably three if we were all in it together.
Tom and I have talked about this before, and we're much more effective behind the mic and behind the scenes than trying to run for that office. And I'll tell you, as time goes on, I think you and I made the right choice years ago not to see.
No question. I got asked that the other day if I was thinking about running for any political office, and I said no. And the longer it goes, the more definite that no becomes.
Absolutely.
Will not seek and will not accept.
Yeah, I got asked a couple times some years back when I was doing some more radio and maybe a higher profile than I am today, but see if I wanted to run for an Iowa Senate seat and that kind of thing. But I said no, I'm not at all interested.
Well, I've had two businesses in Clive over the years, and I always teased Dennis Henderson, who is the city manager, that it was a good thing I didn't live in Clive because I'd run for mayor. And then 8 years ago, my wife and I moved to Clive. And so I called up Dennis Henderson. He goes, I know. And I said, so tell me, what does it take to be mayor? And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll put you on the Citizens Budget Committee. So I spent 3 years on the Citizens Budget Committee, and I literally, then you know this story, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I literally called my wife during the first break of the first meeting and said, I could never be mayor. I'm so underqualified for being mayor.
Well,
that's a tough job.
That's part of it, and I think you've got to have the real interest, and I think to be something like a mayor. And I know Steve Van Orth, that's been the mayor of Ankeny up until very recently. Now he's the one of the Polk County supervisors. I mean, those kind of jobs are tedious. To be an Iowa House or Senate member, there's a lot of meetings and a lot of tediousness, and I don't think I've got a good enough focus and attention span for some of that, Mac. I don't know about you, but
I could see you as the mayor of Norwalk.
Well,
I mean, you've been there for how long?
I have, and I was on the Plan and Zoning Commission for about 15 years.
Did you like that?
At times,
Yeah.
At times, but then at times it was boring. It's more than just walking out once in a while and gaveling in a meeting and then cutting a ribbon or two. There's a lot more to it, and I have a lot of respect for the guy we've got, a former military man. Some people have the calling, and they're very well qualified to do it. I don't think I'm any more qualified than you are, Mac, which means we're not qualified, and I have little interest in doing it. Now, I might be able to fool the people into thinking that I did know something and maybe speak well enough on the stump like you can do and fool them into voting for us, but as far as qualifications and real interest, I have not what it takes.
Here, let's do a role play, Brad. I want you to play a Norwalk citizen
Oh, my goodness.
who is calling Mayor Coates with a complaint, and I'll play Mayor Coates and tell you how that would go. Ring, 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 ring. Hello, this is Mayor Coates. How can I help you?
Yes, I'm really concerned about the high price of water in
Who
Norwalk.
is this?
Brad,
Do you live in Norwalk, Brad?
Absolutely.
How long have you lived here?
all my life.
That's not long enough. Call me when you've been here longer. Click. Next! That's what I'm afraid I would be. I would get some citizen who thinks because they're a tax-paying member of the community. Those are the people when they get pulled over by the cops, they remind the cops that they pay their salary. And I'd take about 3 lines from that guy, and then I'd hang up on him, and I'd never get reelected again. There'd be some scandal. That's what it would be.
Now, that's it. Scandal-ridden administration. There you go.
That's
that
right.
would probably catch us both up.
Yep. All right. So, Brad, you're safe to know that you're in a room with 2 guys that will never run for office.
Will not run, and if
Brad, I heard we just haven't put the committee together yet, and so we're being reluctant.
elected,
No, I
if
don't
elected, will not serve as the remainder of
if
your
selected, will not.
Yeah, if elected,
Will
will
not
not
will not
serve.
run, and if elected, will not serve. All right. So, Tom Harkin steps down. Surprised?
Mac, we've talked about this before, and you know my brief history with Senior Harkin. We've talked about that on the air a little bit, where I chauffeured him home one night at 2:30 in the morning. But no, we've been talking about this on this show, and I've had discussions. Craig Robinson and I had some discussions. I could not believe, if I recall, Craig Robinson was saying that Christy Vilsack was setting herself up, and I said, no way. She was never a serious candidate for the House office in the first place. That was done to stump for her husband, Tom, who himself eventually wants to become a U.S. Senator, Tom Vilsack.
So do you think she did that to add credibility to her name when she's out on the stump?
I think she did it to stump for her husband, Tom Vilsack. And I have no doubt that if she really wanted, I said this before, if she really wanted to be a House member, she would have stayed home, primaried the nutty Professor Loebsack over there in her home district. She wouldn't have had to be a carpetbagger and move across the state to pretend that she was an occupant of Steve King's district, which she never was. All that was done to try to build up brownie points for her husband, Tom Vilsack, understanding the whole time that the biggest threat to that challenge was going to be from Bruce Braley. I've said this. It's coming to pass.
Yeah.
Now, Tom Vilsack is playing his cards close to the vest. Bruce Braley thinks since he's behind in this race already in getting that seat, Vilsack has a statewide recognition, governor, and by most accounts, even amongst moderates, reasonably successful for those 8 years, has been a reasonably high-profile Secretary of Agriculture in Washington. And add that to his wife, even doing the stumping and the bidding to try to dirty up our own Steve King out there, has all the brownie points. So Braley may figure that the best shot he's got is to start an early run, declare early, get some backing, get some money, get some success, and scare Vilsack away from that seat. He may figure that's his only shot. I don't think it'll work, but we'll see.
Tom Coates is in the house along with Army Brad, father and mother tattoo. So do you think either Vilsack or Braley were
Contacted ahead of time?
by Harkin?
I would suspect that whoever Harkin wants to be his successor, and there's even been some talk about Chet Culver, that's not the case. I think that there's a good chance, for instance, I think that probably he and Vilsack, I don't know this, have a better relationship perhaps than he and Braley, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But I suspect whoever he had in mind to take his seat was consulted prior to that public announcement. That would be my guess.
All right. Now, remember that Chet Culver is bankrolled by Uncle Bill Knapp.
Only to a point. He was not given a job by Uncle Bill. He was said you could keep your office, but no, I'm not giving you a job. And he'd hoped that the Oracle from Omaha, Buffett, was going to do the same thing, that owned Mid-America, and he thought he'd let him out with a knucklehead job and paying him six figures, and he could sit back. No, Buffett and Knapp are both businessmen, and they're both too smart, and they both know the character of Chet Culver, and they know that he's a lazy slump who's got, sand for brains, and so they're not going to give him any kind of job. You can keep your office if you want to, but
you read the newspaper.
Same way with Harkin. Harkin knows the guy. Vilsack knows him, and there was no love lost between Tom Vilsack and Chet Culver. You knew that,
right?
Mac.
I know that.
And no, I don't think there's any chance. I mean, Culver wants anything he can get. A man is hungry for something.
But if Braley's in, I mean, I don't know if it's official. But Braley's in.
Okay.
If Vilsack goes in, Culver's not going to primary the two of them. He would end up third.
Well, he can't primary either one of them, and he's not going to find any real money back. And a guy like Knapp or the big money guys are not going to bankroll Culver in anything. So there's no chance.
Poor Chester.
Yeah. I mean, he can try to run for governor again if he wants to, but
there's no
he won't
chance,
even win the
there?
primary in that, I don't think.
Didn't he run against Branstad?
Sure he did.
Branstad already beat him once.
like a rented mule, and it's not going to be any different the next time. But I think the same thing. I was hoping Braley would run for governor.
Yeah,
if the seat hadn't come up, Braley had his sights set to try to step into the governor's seat.
Right.
He would not beat Branstad, and I was hoping that he would, because to do that, he's got to take his foot off the congressional bag. You can't do that with impunity. You got to be willing to sacrifice the seat that you now hold. So you got to take your foot off that bag to try to steal the next one.
Is that the same election?
Well, the congressman's up every 2 years.
And that would be in 16. No, that'd be in 14.
14 for both the governor's seat and that's why it's going to be a very high-profile off-year election. Yeah,
right, because that's Congress, Senate, and governor.
That's right. That's right. We'll have all our 4 Congress people up. We're going to have the Senate seat up, and we're going to have our governor running for re-election. So that's a very high-profile year, and I'm hoping to bury Bruce Braley because he's going to he's got to step his foot off of that congressional bag to run for the Senate seat.
Right.
I think he reads the tea leaves. They've done some polling. I think he probably understands what I just said, that he's probably not going to beat Branstad.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If Vilsack and Braley primary together and Vilsack wins, can Braley put himself back on the bag for congressman?
I don't think so. I think I don't know about that. Let me back up.
Both, but if you're primarying, you're going to weaken whatever seat you already hold as far as people taking you seriously.
I'm not sure about that. Because in the meantime, they're going to have somebody going for that seat.
Right.
And they're going to have to. So I think he's got to take his foot off the bag, don't you?
Well, Ryan in Wisconsin still ran for the House of Representatives while running as part of the Romney ticket, and he was reelected as a representative for Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. That's a good question, Mac. I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to pretend that I do. I don't.
All right, Tom Coates.
But if he ran for governor, if he got into the primary against either one, obviously he's got to take his foot off that congressional bag.
Okay.
And at that point, then we'll get rid of him out there because he is kind of their up and rising star. But I don't think I would put the odds. If I'm an odds maker right now, I'm a bookie, and I'm going to put the odds. I'm going to put him at 2-1. I bet on Vilsack to win that race once he steps into it.
What about Vilsack coming back and running against Branstad?
No, I don't think Vilsack wants. I think he did that for 8 years. I don't think he wants that gig. I think what he wants, the top of the heap for him, and he even talked about running for president for a little while. Remember that he is an ambitious guy. I think he's watched Tom Harkins sit in there and Chuck Grassley sit in for as long as they want to, pile up a giant war chest. Make a mint personally. Look at Harkin now. Chuck hadn't done that, but Harkin has. So
All
That's
right.
what he wants.
We're coming back after this break. Tom Coates is in the house. Army Brad, we're talking politics. What about the Republican side? Is there a name out there that hasn't been bannered around yet? Maybe with the initials SD? Let's talk about it.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
21 minutes after the hour, we're talking politics here on The View from a Pew. Army Brad in the house along with Tom Coates, father and mother tattoo. And we were talking about Senator Tom Harkin on the Democratic side. Now, let's make a list of who we think the Democratic possibilities are. We've got Braley, we've got Culver, we've got Vilsack. Who else?
Well, it's not in the proper order, but
I understand.
I think there's a few others that might. But if those, if the Braley and Vilsack get in, as I suspect they will, then it kind of precludes ones like who's the Pam Yoakum, the senator, the state senator that was bandied about. There's a lot of lesser lights that might covet that seat, of course.
Well, there's a ton of people that would covet that seat.
But I think
but realistically.
But there's always those people that will get into the race knowing they won't win, but it raises their, kind of like Christy Vilsack did.
Okay.
I wonder if Gronstal doesn't do that to make him a national figure.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about Gronstal.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's got any higher aspirations than just being the jerk-in-chief over there in the Iowa Senate.
I don't know. He's doing pretty good.
Well, he fills that role very well, and we just can't seem to get rid of him.
Now,
so,
is this something Hatch jumps in on, or does he wait for the governor's role?
I don't know. What do you think?
I like Jack Hatch, but I'm not in favor of him. I see Hatch more of a, quite frankly, taking Mayor County's job when County wants to step aside.
Yeah, see, to do this, you got to at least aspire to a statewide profile.
Right.
And the three that you mentioned are the only three that probably have a good shot at a statewide profile if the Republicans put up a legitimate contender.
All right, so let's talk Republicans.
Okay.
You gotta put what?
Tom Latham, isn't he?
Well, we'll put him on the list, but I think he's pretty comfortable where he is. But what about why can't I think of his name? Vanderplatz.
Well, Vanderplatz traditionally is a perpetual candidate.
Right.
A bridesmaid. He stumped in there 3 different times to try and really tried to muddy the water for Branstad this last time, which a lot of the party faithful really will not forgive him for. I mean, they didn't care for him much anyway. But Vanderplatz, yes.
Lieutenant Governor?
That's the one that I'm thinking about, Mac, because, all right, to take either Steve King, who I don't think will have a good enough...
that was the thing that the uninformed that I am heard was that King and Latham are going to, if they're not already talking, will be talking soon and kind of flip a coin on which one of those two will come out because they won't go against each other.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. But to me... Steve King is where I'd want my congressman to be. I mean, Steve King's the man. But on moral issues, spiritual issues, finance issues, he's it. But he is seen, for that reason, as such a conservative firebrand that the thought was he wouldn't appeal at all to the moderates or the independents. And there's some truth that I think Latham is a more palatable candidate.
Okay.
I think that, to me... But if Latham does it, we've got the same problem here, guys, on our side, as I said, with Braley. Braley has to step his foot off the bag to make that run. We beat him, and then he's nothing. He's back out in civilian life. We've got the same problem with Latham, and Latham, unlike King, comes from a district that could go either way. King's district, being out in western Iowa, is unlikely to go for anything other than a Republican. Mm-hmm. So you could find a substitute, stick him in there, and probably get him elected. Okay, but King's not probably electable on a statewide election. Latham is more electable, but you open up his seat and you open up the problems that we could lose that seat in the House.
Yeah, just like Braley.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of like the idea of Kim Reynolds. Now, there's some pluses and minuses to everybody, right? But Kim she has learned her craft pretty well. Her background as a county auditor, state senator, now lieutenant governor, those things I think would stand her well. I think there is an appetite for a female presence in a congressional seat or a Senate seat because Iowa's never had one.
Right.
We keep hearing that. We're only one of 2 states that have never had a woman. Okay. We are one of 2 states that have never had a woman. Kim makes a nice appearance. She's an attractive woman.
But she'd have to take her bag off the lieutenant governor.
That's right, but that's not something that we need to worry about.
Lieutenant governor. It's not governor. It's lieutenant governor.
Well, I know, but the whole thing has always been that Branstad's coaching her to run for governor.
The Senate seat is a huge, huge thing. You could argue that in many ways, if we could get her into the Senate, that would be far better than perhaps anybody might have thought. And I don't know what the logistics are, but we don't need to worry about taking our foot off a lieutenant governor's bag.
Right.
But she would have to.
Well, she would have to step out of that role. And I don't know what the specifics are of Branstad appointing somebody else to be, because it's not an elected position. Now, there are some states that have a lieutenant governor as a separate elected position.
Right.
That's a different matter. In this case, it's kind of like president and vice president.
Yeah, I bet you Branstad would choose Chris Fong from Cedar Rapids.
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I remember him. So my point is that there's not much danger there, and if she could get it, I think she'd be an interesting Senate candidate.
All right, let's talk about those people that just want to raise their what do they call it? Their Q factor.
Mm-hmm.
What about Steve Dace? I mean, you got to know that Steve, at one point or another, is going to reach for a public office.
That would be a very high reach to.
Well, but that's the level he plays on, though. I don't ever see Steve Dace running for a state job.
This is my take, and the least informed. It'd be make the debates interesting, but it was kind of like Newt Gingrich, where you have the person that has the facts and can do the talk out there, but I don't think he would have the support to go very far, and other than just making the initial debates very interesting.
If you are, let's put it this way, I think, Mac, and I'll get done laughing. If you are a Democrat, it's somebody like a Steve Dace that you very much would like to get into that primary race. Now, I can go into that in detail if you want, but if I'm a Democrat, that's the kind of guy I want in there.
To make it easier for your guy.
A flamethrower, a bomb thrower that's going to step in there and dirty up the rest of the candidates on the other side. So, absolutely, if I'm a Democrat, that's what I want, Steve Dace or somebody like stepping in.
All right. If you're a Republican, who's the guy that would do that on the Democratic side?
Well, once upon a time, did you have John Narcissus on here the other day?
That's who I was
Once
thinking.
upon a time, I was told by Mr. Narcissus that he was going to do that to the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of guy that I relished get in there in the governor's race and dirty up Chet Culver.
Right.
He told me that's what he was going to do. The opposite turned out to be...
Yeah, he dirtied Branstad.
Would be the truth. He got in there, just like I said Steve Dace would, and he tried to make life as miserable as he could for the Republicans. But somebody like that, maybe an Ed Fallon. You don't have to look beyond your own network here,
Ed
Mac.
Fallon has already said
Fallon,
no. He's already said no.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's already been approached.
He said he's not interested.
He said he's not interested.
But I'm not saying Ed in specifics, but I'm saying that's the kind of person you want to know who I want. I want somebody that could hold up a standard and call foul and say this smells like Ed could. I don't agree with Ed on much, but that's who I'd want in there, somebody like Ed Fallon.
Now, he's already said no to Harkin's seat. Did he say no to Branstad?
I believe he said no to all public office at this point. He said he's done. He's over it.
Now, is that before or after the lawsuit was dropped?
It was after.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just the other day I heard him say it, because I actually told him, he's the last guy I'd ever vote for, but that's who I'd want to see if my guy lost. Okay. I like Ed Fallon. I think Tom's right that he would be willing to call foul on some stuff that was foul, and he's got some principle and ideals about him, and that while I don't agree with him, I can appreciate that at least he stands for something.
What's Fallon's? I mean, Ed Fallon's a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any opportunity to answer this. What's his street cred in politics? Is he just another Ralph Nader in Iowa?
I think a similar type figure, Mac.
Okay.
I think that's probably a decent analogy.
I've heard him called that. Yeah, I've heard him called that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I've heard him called that by Democratic people, that he's the Ralph Nader of Iowa. So
that's why I just can't. I would find it hard to believe that he's not going to get his foot somewhere in the 2014 elections. Somewhere, just to be there.
I think he's more like Dennis Kucinich, though, for the record.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, but you can trust what the person is, because Dennis is a great person to throw out there. He's doing it because he believes what he says, unlike so many of the people that are...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Fallon believes what he says. He's just kind of nutty, like Kucinich. I was being serious. I wasn't ad hominem there. I think I would, rather than Ralph Nader, I'd say he's more like Kucinich.
Well, let me give you, for instance, on Fallon, and this is maybe the nicest thing I can think to say about him. When he was serving in the Iowa House, he and I came together on the gambling issue. He absolutely abhorred commercialized gambling. He felt that it was a regressive tax on those that can least afford it. I agreed with him on that aspect of it. There were other things that I opposed, and I was opposed on some other moral grounds that he didn't share, but he was a true believer. Most of his compadres, and too many on the Republican side, sell out to the dollar. I mean, they're corrupted. There's a new bill out now that both Republicans and Democrats are getting behind on internet gambling.
Yeah.
So Ed Fallon, I think for the most part on these policies, is a true believer, and he does not mind standing up against the establishment, and that's admirable. It would be better if he were pointed in a little straighter direction, but it's admirable that he does stand up for the things that he believes.
Would you say that he's a centrist?
No, centrist?
No? Okay.
Oh, no. Not on most issues.
Okay. All right.
Would you?
On some issues, yes. On some issues, yes. But who's the guy who's closest to center in that whole thing?
To the center?
Vilsack? Is he the guy that's closest to the center?
Well, Vilsack's the one I'm most worried about.
That he could win?
Yes. Yes, I think he's the one that I would most worry about. He would probably be nearly as far left as Harkin, but just like Harkin, once he won that seat, he could always come back and campaign. I think Vilsack could come back and campaign and sound like a centrist, and would vote like a liberal, just like Harkin. So I think we're looking maybe not quite as far left as Harkin, but nearly.
I think the only race that Vilsack doesn't hands down win is a competition with Latham. Vanderplatz, no.
No.
Reynolds, no. Dace. Well, and what would be interesting is to see if Vanderplatz runs, would the family leader allow Dace to get in there? Because they're on the same, they stand on the same island.
They'd be fighting for the same small number of votes.
Or does Dace get behind Vanderplatz as a campaign strategist?
Well, he certainly could, and he's done that before when he's run for governor. And before Mac, he had the big kahuna WHO radio behind him, and it still didn't make any difference. I mean, that footprint of WHO radio, we argued before, was the thing that killed off Romney on that first primary.
All right, 25 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Mike Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church with True Blue. We're coming back. Let's talk immigration. Immigration reform is here. It's going to happen in the next 4 years. We'll talk about it next, live on KTIA.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Fight the good fight on a Rebels Cause Radio, Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on a rebelscause.com. A Rebels Cause Radio is edutainment.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting him by faith, what he did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
38 minutes after the hour, 22 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff with True Blue. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is The View from a View, The View from a Pew. Most days we've got a preacher or a teacher or a pastor, an author or a theologist.
Close enough.
Theologist?
Yeah, theologist, yes.
Thank you. Sitting in one of these chairs, and I get to ask great questions. That's not the case today. It will be the case.
Great questions or great answers are not forthcoming today.
That will be the case tomorrow when Michael Damascus joins us. But Wednesday we like to talk.
Were you looking for the term
theologian?
Theologian.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And so Michael Damascus will be here tomorrow in that seat, and we appreciate that. Wednesdays, we like to talk politics. Big news in Iowa. Of course, Senator Harkin stepping down. We were kind of wondering who was going to be the guy to step up and run on both sides. But let's talk immigration for a minute, because without a doubt, the gun control kind of fell into Obama's lap after Sandy Hook? Hook, is that right?
Well, that was
Newtown.
The tragedy of the day that they're trying to build on. But apparently that's not going anywhere, Mac. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time and space been taken up with gun control. We've talked about some on this show. It looks like there's too many Democrats that are fearing for their positions because 2 years from now, many of these Democratic senators are going to be up for election, especially the ones from some of the areas that Mitt Romney won in the election. Many of those seats are up for grabs. They don't want this thing. I don't think they're going to vote for any significant. This thing that Feinstein put back out. It was a so-called assault weapon. And I know it's not an assault weapon. So-called assault weapons ban. They let it expire. It did no good. And the numbers of murders in this country that are committed by those rifles, those assault weapons that she talks
quote
about,
unquote,
are such a small number that it's not even worth talking
2%.
about. Yeah,
2%.
So I think we can move on and talk about something that I think you and I have talked about over the years. Matter of fact, we did a couple of days called Radio Row on the immigration.
Yep.
We had Ron Paul as our guest. We had Sheriff Joe Arpaio as our guest. We had some interesting and big names come in there for that period of time, and we've talked about off and on over the years. It's once again front and center. I think we need to talk about that for a little bit here.
Well, and it is the political hotbed for the next couple of elections because the Latinos know that it is their votes that the GOP needs to defeat the Democrats, and the Democrats know that if they've got the Latinos on their side, they really can't lose an election. They're the largest minority in the country, and you know who's become
growing.
What did I say?
Well, no,
it's largest and growing.
They're the largest, and they're the fastest growing segment of our population.
Right.
You're right.
And soon, the largest minority in this country are going to be white men. Did you know that?
We already are because there's more women than there are men. So
okay. So how is Obama, Tom? How is he recommending that we do immigration reform?
I think we have to look back at the so-called, it was immigration reform put out by Ted Kennedy back in the 80s that Ronald Reagan signed on to. But what Ronald Reagan signed on to is what the blueprint for this thing that the Republicans and the Democrats have put together. They want to close the borders. That's what they were promised under the Ronald Reagan bill, which never got done. They took some steps in that direction, never really closed it. Some of these steps that would things that you and I and Brad, probably most of your audience can agree on, need to be done to keep predatory employers from taking advantage of the rest of us, to perhaps expand the green card system, if we can demonstrate that there are jobs that are going wanting, that Americans, quote, they have said for years that Americans will no longer do some of these jobs. If there are some of those jobs, expand the green card program, allow them to come in. They want a path to citizenship, and it depends on how you define that. If, guys, when Reagan did it, and he was pushed into doing it, when he did that, there was 3 million that were granted, essentially, that were granted amnesty at that point. If we go down that road now, by at least conservative estimates, we're talking about 11 to 12 million.
Conservative estimates.
Yes, there could be more, but I mean that's a rough estimate, but that may be close. Let's look at how the voting rewarded Ronald Reagan. There was some thought that Ronald Reagan will be the spiritual leader now for the Hispanics. That him allowing and signing into law the amnesty bill, he'll be rewarded. When he was first elected back in 1980, he received 37% of the Hispanic vote. Are you with me?
37% of the Hispanic vote in 1980.
You know how much he got in 84 after that bill had passed?
No.
Take a guess.
25%.
30%. It went down, guys. There was no reward at the end of that rainbow for he or the Republicans. And my point to make that is that if we go down this road again, we buy into Obama's bag of shells, no border closure, they'll promise things like penalizing employers and verifying this and taking them off the welfare rolls and da-da-da-da-da. None of that happens. All we do is give them a path to amnesty for millions more. All we're doing is giving them millions of more voters.
Yeah, well, because what they've got to do, amnesty is the only thing that gives them votes in 14 and 16, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And nothing else but amnesty.
That's the only thing they care about.
Well, then that's what it's going to be. It's going to be amnesty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the only thing they care about.
So,
and if we go along with that, we don't win their affection. We don't get a bunch of people that are anxious to hear our message and vote for us. We're getting millions of more Democrat voters, and it's that much more difficult to beat them, especially in the Southwest.
Now, you know what's interesting about this? It was just 60 years ago that the reason the Democrats wanted civil rights reform was because then the blacks could vote.
Right.
Now, after the black got the vote, how many Democrats controlled things over Republicans? In other words, did it work? You're talking Kennedy, Johnson, that doesn't count, Carter, and Clinton, right? You're only talking about 4 presidents in those 60 years, making up 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, plus 8. So you're talking about 20 years of those 60 years controlled by the Democrats. So the blacks getting the vote didn't really give the Democrats the dominance that they wanted.
No, and now that percent of the population is no longer, growing dramatically, they're taken for granted.
Thanks to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, that's right. The black population after the Civil War essentially were a Republican voting bloc until FDR came along. Expanded in fact, you could argue that FDR broke up the nucleus of the black family. The black family up until that point was a very cohesive, coherent unit, and nearly all of the births that were coming were within the bounds of wedlock. When FDR came along, introduced the welfare state and forced the black father out of the home, that set a very bad precedent in motion to now where over 80% of the black births in this country are born out of wedlock. You can lay that on the doorstep. But unfortunately, those programs also laid the foundation for shifting the black population over to voting. What was it this last time, guys? 90% of the blacks voted for Obama?
Oh, yeah.
Like 95, or it was some...
I know that's politically incorrect to point that out, but if we had 95% of the whites voting for a particular candidate, it would be called racist all day long.
Well, it's interesting because the women who are getting abortions, first is black, second is white, and third is Latino.
Yeah,
which just makes the Latino population continue to grow.
Good point. Because of their Catholic underpinnings,
Right.
And I don't know how long it takes for this secular society to stamp that out of them. But that's been argued, guys, that fundamental moral core of the Latinos makes them likely Republican voters. But it's not working out that way.
It doesn't work out that way. All right, I'll pose a question. How about Mexico, our 51st state? What president is going to make that happen? Because it will happen. I don't know if it's going to be in our lifetime. We'll talk about it next, live on The View from a Pew.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff, Pastor Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian. Remember, tomorrow starts Testifies 13-week project with the Truth Project. If you don't know anything about the Truth Project, it's easy. Google it. I never thought I'd say that in my life. Google the Truth Project, and then there's 2 little videos you can play, and both of them will give you a good idea. One's like 4 minutes, the other one's 6.
I think I'm going to do that, Mac.
It's no cost. It's an incredible pizza. If you want to eat, it's $7 for all-you-can-eat buffet, salad, dessert, drink, everything like that. I just invite you to come once. And if it isn't your cup of tea, if it's not your style of teaching, then, don't come back. You don't have to come back, but you're welcome to. It's no cost ever. The whole thing's free, 13 weeks. By the family, focus on the family. I took the Truth Project twice. And for the most part, I enjoyed all of it. Yeah, there were some. Actually, there was one segment that was a little too political for me, believe it or not.
Oh, really? What was that one?
Oh, I think it's the 8th or 9th week. It just gets a little too far right wing for me.
Notice Tom jumped up to
right at my alley.
Yeah, well, there we go. I'm sign me up.
But everything is just incredible in the Truth Project. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything except, a hour and a half of your time. The video's an hour, and then we'll sit around and talk afterwards. We're going to do it every Thursday, starting tomorrow, for 13 weeks at Incredible Pizza, 86th and Douglas, in Urbandale. And then, of course, next Wednesday, the 6th, we have Testify, and we've got a great lineup there. Fritz Trost from Lutheran Church of Hope is going to give his testimony, and David Householder, big brother of Pastor Mike Householder, is going to be on Skype live from California with his book, The Blackberry Bush. And he's a radio talk show host. He is a pastor of a very successful church in Huntington Beach, and he's an author, and he's really a cool guy. I've gotten to know David over the years, and he's a neat guy. So that's next Wednesday for Testify, and tomorrow, The Truth Project, both at Incredible Pizza, 86th and Douglas. And our guest tomorrow, by the way, will be Michael Damascus. So we're looking forward to that. And Matty promises he'll be here Friday.
Yes, he did.
Promised he'll be here. Promised. So we'll see. All right. We're talking about immigration. You kind of looked at me like you didn't agree with me. Don't you think Mexico at some point will be part of the United States of America? Isn't that the absolute final solution for immigration?
Mexico would become part of the United States after Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Canada are all United States states broken up into whatever. And then if it would become a U.S. state, it'd be actually states. It'd be a number of states.
Well, Russia would have to fall for us to get Cuba. So I don't think that's going to...
No.
The Russians no longer really
ties
support.
with Russia and Cuba have long since frayed, and that's not a... They're an impoverished entity. I think Cuba is the logical one. I don't know. I'm told that Puerto Rico didn't want it a few years ago, that they've changed their ideas, that they would like it now. Canada makes much more sense to me. Some people would have said a few years ago, guys, that Mexico would have been a logical one because they had oil. Now, whether they've got oil or not, it has been run into the ground by the same socialist bureaucracies that threaten to take us down. By the way, the numbers came out just today showing that the fourth quarter growth in this country that was projected during the election to be about 2.5%. Instead was down. We contracted our economy by 1/10%.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's a huge change. You won't hear about it much in the media, but it is a huge difference between growing 2.5% and shrinking 0.1%.
All right.
But the same kind of bureaucracy has run them down, where in a few years they will be an oil importer, not an oil exporter.
All right, Brad, from your military background, if we as the United States were to go in to overtake Mexico militarily, who's going to oppose us?
The Mexican army, and they won't oppose us for long.
Yeah, not for long. Is there anybody going to ally with the Mexicans?
The Chinese probably would, just on principle, just to be a thorn in our side. But
what are you going after there, Mac? You invade them? What are you going after?
You're going to end illegal immigration. You're going to fight. You're going to say it's better to fight. It's better to what's that term? Join them than it is to fight them. You people think it's so great up here to come up and take our money and take our tax. We're just going to come down there, redo your borders, and this is going to be the new United States. And just like with Hawaii, we've got an incredible vacation spot along the ocean.
It's a beautiful idea, Mac, but I think the people that would oppose it most would be half the United States citizens that when it started, we'd be like, what are we doing?
We're fixing immigration.
Well, we can't fix it. We're not willing to even talk about actually fixing it here in the United States. Why would we make the matter that much more murky?
Are we going to raise our style of living, or are we going to lower it to be? Because if they become part of us, there's some good people down there, and I travel down to Mexico frequently and getting ready to again. But their standard of living is well below what ours is, and if they become our 51st state, with how many million people do they have? Another 80, 90 million or something?
The problems that we have, we wouldn't be the solution. They would just
it would expand our problems, and instead of expanding our benefits to them, we would take on their problems, and we would go downhill faster, I think.
I don't know.
Cartels run half the territories on the border, if not all of them.
You get rid of the drug cartels?
How do you why would you do that any easier than you could right now?
Because we have to do it we have to do it secretly now, right? Covertly. Where if that was our part of the country, we wouldn't have to do it covertly.
If we had the will to close our borders to both drug and illegal immigrants, we could do it, and we've been able to do it for a long time. The technology is there. It's the will that's lacking, guys. We could block our borders for the most part if we had a desire to do it. We don't have the desire to do it.
No. We don't even enforce the laws that are... If we wanted to actually do something positive toward the problem, the first thing they could do is start enforcing the laws that are on the book. They don't have to pass any additional law. There are cities that actively state they are not going to enforce the laws that federal, state. They're stating that they're not going to enforce it, compared to the 90% of the nation that doesn't even pretend to enforce it. They're actively saying we're not going to enforce the law, which seems almost
It just
criminal.
seems that we're not willing to fix our own problems. You know?
Absolutely.
Just seems to, everything is getting bucked to the next generation. Everything.
But we're running out of the ability to kick that can down the road. The amount of the debt dollars and everything. And you know how much pumping the Federal Reserve has done into our economy for the last quite a few years? And it has done nothing. The contraction of the economy this last quarter proves it. We can't continue.
All right, Tom Coates, thank you. Army Brad, thank you. Father and Mother Tattoo, thank you. See you tomorrow with Michael Damascus. Salem Radio Network News is next. And until I see you again, would you do me just one little favor? Just a little. Pray.